at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering, I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more. What up, dogs? Welcome back to another episode of the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. I have no idea how many times this is that you've been on now. You're just on. Oh, we have Ellia Miller back in to talk about all things CrossFit and all things Ellia Miller again. Ellia, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Your unofficial official co-host.
Hell yeah. Ellia, what do you have going on right now? What's your training looking like today? What did you do?
Today was a rest day, actually.
Hey.
I got a trailer hitch installed on my Jeep.
Hey, when you text that to me, I was like, that is the most random Kansas. Is that where you live right now? Kansas ass shit to be doing. Like, oh, I know that 5 days in advance I'm going to get this hitch put on my whatever. Tell us, why were you doing that?
So, I am actually leaving Kansas beginning of next month. I'm moving out to Nevada.
Oh, shit.
I would have just sold all my furniture and packed up my car, but there's two reasons I can't do that. First reason is because I have to put my cats in my car, and they basically take up the full back seat of my car, which
with all their transports
limits the amount of things that I can put in my car. And then on top of that, I need to transport an assault runner from Kansas to Nevada.
Damn.
So I am going to pull a trailer to put the assault runner in, put the rest of my stuff in that doesn't fit in my car, so I can move out to Nevada. And I am going out there. I'll be at CrossFit Power Stroke in Fallon, and I'll be training with Sean Sweeney. I'll be coaching at his gym. I'll be helping him with his Cowboy Way athlete program. And it's gonna be a great time. I'm gonna be
Leah the cowboy.
Yeah, I'll be living in a trailer in his front yard. So
sweet. That's the way. You're gonna be a Leah the cowgirl. Is there gonna be an Instagram name change coming on?
Oh man, I can't do it.
You can't walk away from this classic.
Yeah, well, because I feel like there's so many things that are tied to my Instagram handle as what it is right now. I don't want to change it.
Yeah.
And
branding.
Even if I get married one day, my last name changes, I still kind of want to keep my Instagram as Ellia Miller.
I heard that because it's hard to call people by their new names, man.
Yeah.
She'll always be Carl Webb to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. Or
one of those things.
Bethany Shadburn. She's
exactly
Flores now, but I still always call her Bethany Shadburn.
Facts. When I heard that on the games announced, I was like, what is happening? Who are you even talking about? Like when we were texting about her injury during the lift, I was like, I don't even know who you're saying right now. So how did that relationship come about? How did you end up on the path to make that move?
Yeah. So back in the beginning of August, he made an Instagram post about looking for somebody to come out, coach at his gym. He has a tiny house on his property and he has a trailer. And initially he was looking for somebody to come out and live in the tiny house, coach for him, train with him, whatever. And in return for coaching at his gym, helping him run his businesses, you can live in the tiny house for free. And so I was at a point where when I moved to Kansas 2 years ago, I quit my job. I quit everything so I could go all in on CrossFit. And I had about 2 years worth of money in my savings account. So when I came out here, I knew I was kind of on a clock to either figure out how to make more money or, I don't know, figure out something else.
Right.
So I was coming up on that, and then my friend Allie sent me this post that Sean made. I was like, holy crap, that would be like the perfect thing for me. It's exactly what I'm looking for. I can't afford rent anymore, but I still want to be able to train and try to make it to the games.
Right.
So I sent him a message actually the day he posted it, which was August 1st. And then didn't get a response. And like, he didn't even read the message. I'm sure he got hundreds of messages after he posted
Literally.
that. So I was like, he's never going to see my message, but you know, got to shoot my shot. And then after like 2 or 3 weeks, not hearing anything back, I was like, all right, moving on. That door is closed. Not going to happen, but that's okay. I'll figure out something else.
Right.
So then I kind of like looked into some other opportunities. I thought about maybe going team with a couple different people. And then mid-October, actually, it was while I was competing at Crash Crucible, I got an Instagram message from Sean.
Wow.
He was like, hey, well, and so the other funny thing is maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before that, he had posted about, you know, he had found somebody to come out. There was a girl living in the tiny house, coaching for him, training with him. And he was looking for somebody to come out and do media for him, to live in the trailer, do media. And I saw that post and I was like, well, I don't do media, so I don't know. It is what it is.
Not for me. Yeah.
But then maybe like a week or two after that, I got a message from him and he was like, hey, I'd love to chat more. You know, can you like record a YouTube video, answer these questions, send it over to me? So I sent him a video and he texted me back. He's like, hey, watched your video. I'd love to get on a phone call. So we got on a phone call. We talked for like an hour. And by the end of the phone call, I had plans to fly out to Nevada, test it out for a couple days, like a week later. So I went out there for about 3 or 4 days, tested it out, lived in the trailer for a couple days, coached at the gym, met everybody. And it was awesome. So by the time he was dropping me off at the airport, I was like, all right, let's do it.
Dude, man, that's crazy. Had you guys ever had any like interaction before, or was this like the first time like any sort of like working relationship was developing?
So funny story, I actually dropped in at his gym back in I think January of 2020, when I did my cross-country CrossFit road trip. So I was moving from California back to New Jersey, and I bought a car in California and I drove back to New Jersey and like planned my route based on CrossFit gyms I wanted to drop into. So I dropped into his gym. He coached the class that I took. And he had no idea that it was
the same person.
Right. But when I went out there a couple weeks ago, I mentioned it and he was like, oh my gosh, I remember that. And then back in September, he competed at NorCal Classic. And I was out there with Victory Grips, and this was like maybe a month after he had first posted, saying that he was looking for somebody. And I saw him walking across Vendor Village, and so I ran up to him. I was like, "Hey, Sean, just want to introduce myself. You know, I sent you an Instagram message. Did you find people?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, we got 2 people coming out this weekend for a test run." And I was like, "Well, if anything ever comes up in the future, let me know."
Right.
And so like I really thought the door was closed on that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I guess
really you gave him a face to put to the image, you know?
And he actually didn't even realize that was me until I was in Nevada
you got
with
there.
him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I told him about it. But I guess one of the people that came out was the girl who's now there living in the tiny house. And then the second one kind of just like fell through at the last minute. So he was still looking for somebody else. And that's how I ended up.
You became the somebody else.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Somebody else.
So I feel like you've told us in all the different occasions about you essentially packing up your life and moving across the country, or halfway up, down, northwest, south, something like that. But how many times in total have you done that now? Like moved across the country and packed up your life?
So I moved from California to New Jersey when I started grad school, packed up all my stuff, moved out there.
Damn.
And then while I was in New Jersey, I got deployed. During my deployment, I lost my apartment in New Jersey and sold my car. So when I came back, I went back to California to live with my parents for a couple months while I figured out like finding a new place to live and all that in New Jersey. So then I drove from California to New Jersey a second time.
Wow, you
after my
psycho.
deployment. So the first time I did it, it was like 4.5 days. I had my dad with me. I had my 2 cats in the car, and it was like, just get there as fast as possible. The second time I did it, I didn't have the cats because they were in New York with my sister. She was watching them for me while I was deployed. And I had just bought my new Jeep, and I was super excited to like take my time, drop into all these gyms. So that was like a 12-day cross-country drive. And then when I left New Jersey, my cousin came out and helped me move to Kansas. So he drove a moving truck and I drove my car out to Kansas. And I had actually considered getting a trailer and towing all my stuff from New Jersey. But at the time I looked into like what it would cost to get a hitch installed and all that stuff. And it
Wasn't
just
feasible.
didn't seem like it was worth it. And now I'm kind of regretting that because if I had just paid for it back then,
you would have it now.
Pay for it now.
Yeah.
But
and you were at the top of your savings account, not at the bottom at that time too, you know. I feel that though, man. It always seems like when you have like the most money, you're like, I don't want to spend it right now. And then when you get to those moments when you have to spend the money, you're like, oh man, it's gonna look so much worse now in my account.
Yeah,
oh man.
I am very lucky. My parents are helping me a lot with this move.
That's awesome.
Super grateful for that. So
yeah, hell yeah.
They came and watched me at semifinals. That was my mom's second time at semifinals and then my dad's first time. And so my mom had seen me in Knoxville at Syndicate last year. But that was her first time seeing me at like a high level competition. And then this year's semifinals, it was her second time and my dad's first time seeing me at a high level competition. And
that's so dope.
Yeah. And after that, my dad was just like, we're gonna do anything we can to make sure that you get to games.
I mean, I was gonna say it's like you're gonna do positive things with it, you know, like it's just trajectory keeps going up with everything you're doing, you know, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so super supportive parents. I'm very grateful for them.
That's dope. So you were saying a little bit before that you had almost considered going team, and when you're in this like changing period of your life, like was there a long period of time where you kind of let go of the indie games goal?
So I don't think I ever let it go. And I think that's part of the reason why I am still going to go indie this year.
Right.
When I was coming up on having to decide whether or not I was going to renew my lease for my apartment in Kansas, I was trying to figure out if there were other like more financially feasible options for me. And like at the end of the day, I could have always moved back home with my parents, but you know, what adult wants to move back in with their parents? That's
right. You don't want to go backwards again.
Yeah. And like, it would have been rough. Also, my dad doesn't want cats in his house, so
you're like, I gotta hold the cats.
Welcome.
Yeah.
But I had seen Angelo DeChico had posted about looking for a female for the Mayhem team. So I reached out to him and talked to him for a little bit, and it didn't end up working out. But I was considering maybe going out to Cokeville and
get that training in.
Yeah, if it could have been a more financially feasible option than what I had in Kansas. Like I said, that didn't work out. I think they ended up going with somebody else. But then there was a guy in Missouri, Josh Matz, who had reached out to me about the possibility of going team. And I think part of the reason why I was considering going team was because it would have given me a little bit more flexibility with my schedule. Like you still have to train hard to be on a good team, but it's not quite as much pressure as going individual. So there would have been more flexibility for like part-time work to, generate more income and stuff
Offset.
like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, like those people, you're still in like the 2%, but like that small difference between the 1 to 2 is like a big deal of time and effort that people are putting in,
Yeah. So that was kind of like, okay, well, if I go team, maybe I'll still be able to work enough to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so I was considering that for a while. And then got this message from Sean. And I think so part of it, I was talking with Brian Friend at Crash Crucible. It was the day before competition started. He was there during the athlete check-in, and him and I were just talking for a little bit, and I wanted to ask him about like some of the potential people that I was thinking about going team with, just to see like what his thoughts and opinions are on if we would be a competitive team, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, I don't like really recognize any of the names, but he's like, you've been on a good path as an individual. And he's like, I feel like a lot of times people will go team when they feel like they've hit a wall on the individual side and they're not making any more forward progress. And then it becomes like, okay, well, how else can I get to the games? Let's try team. But he said, you've continued to improve every year. You seem like you're on an upward trajectory.
Why stop
now?
now?
Working, why stop? So that kind of made me second guess the team decision. And it was tough. I spent that whole weekend, I was like, because that was before the competition. And I was like, all right, if this competition goes really well, then maybe that's a sign I need to go individual. And unfortunately, the competition didn't go super well on day one.
You're like, oh, fuck.
I did manage to climb my way back up, ended day one in second to last place, 29 out of 30.
That never feels good.
Way back up to 12th by the end of the weekend with an event win, another top 3 finish. So, I mean,
that's finishing good. Yeah, that's finishing good then.
But anyway, so that kind of had me second guessing, like, do I actually want to go team? And then when the opportunity with Sean became a real thing, I was like, all right, I think this is the sign that like my heart is still in individual. Even if I went team, I would still always want to go back to being an individual. Like at the end of the day, I want to make the games as an individual. And there's like, I know that I don't need to like prove anything or anything like that, but just deep in my heart, that's what I want.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So on that note, like we were talking about at the beginning, do you feel for, and you have the aspirations to go on and we're on the upward trajectory. So we'll talk about this in 2 different sects of it. Do you feel that for someone who's like this season's cap is semifinals, do you feel there is an off season, and when would you consider it?
If somebody is going to make it to semifinals, but then not make the games?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for everybody. And I think it depends on why your season stops when it stops. Like if you have some major holes in like specific skills or strength or something like that, and you really need to take the time to like focus on fixing that hole, then I think after semifinals, that's kind of when your off season starts, and that's your building season.
Yeah.
But then
when does that person have to start sharpening their edge again to get back into it? Because I feel like there was supposed to be a time that after the games up through the holidays was supposed to be and I'm not talking about like, sorry for everyone out there, like the quarterfinals athlete who's going to compete on the local level. I feel like that between, like I said, the end of August, September time till about January used to be what people would consider the off season, so much so that when they put that different time to open in later on, and we had 2 in 1 year, everyone was like, well, they got rid of it off season. But now it seems like for the higher level, like you and above, you guys are taking September, August off, and then you're sharpening the axe back up for whether it be a Rogue qualifier, hopes to compete at Rogue, things like Crash, things like what's the one that you did last year that Hiller was the judge at? Zalos, things like that. It seems like the Wadapalooza in January now, it seems like those are becoming as important, if maybe not as important, but right there with like a semifinal for like the higher level athletes year. And then they have to do quarterfinals and semis in the spring. So when do you consider the time period, I guess, to start sharpening your axe again? When is the time period that you're kind of down? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, it depends on like what type of athlete you are. So like if you're somebody who needs to fill in a serious hole, then I think your off season starts after semifinals and it lasts until the Open. And you're not doing anything in that off season except working on fixing your holes. If you are somebody who is like, okay, I got to semifinals, like I feel like me this past season, I got to semifinals. I could do everything. I didn't have any major holes anywhere. It was kind of just like an overall, I need to raise my level up just a little bit.
What I would call like your 14 to like 21 spots.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I would look at it. If I'm looking at the leaderboard, because what top 14 from
I think it was
West went
10 or 11, maybe.
Okay. So somewhere, so then, yeah, you're 12 to number 20 on the leaderboard. Those people there who are back at the competition scene again.
Yeah. So in that case, like, yeah, I'm still going to train and I'm still going to have an off season where I'm not like 100% of my training revolves around like, okay, so I did Crash, I did the Rogue qualifier, I did the Wadapalooza qualifier, but I didn't focus my training on those things. I kind of like trained through them so that I could focus on the season that matters coming up, starting with the Open.
The Open, yeah.
But I feel like when you don't have major holes to fill, you can take that little bit of like distraction during your off season to go and compete, maybe, try to get your name out there, pick up some sponsorships, pick up some prize money, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you don't need a full dedicated off season to fixing a big hole, it's a lot more manageable to do that. And I think that's kind of how it is now for the games athletes who come off the games in August, and then they've got Rogue, Dubai, Wadapalooza, now there's Fit Fest, German Throwdown, all that kind of stuff.
All kind of stuff popping up, yeah.
And
dude, we're starting to see the growth of the what do they call it, the CrossFit sanctioned event. Like I go on the thing and it's like all these events. But keep going.
And I think for a lot of the games athletes, they can do that because they can compete in the off season and still maintain and like build enough in the off season to still be okay. Because also for those athletes, the Open and quarterfinals are still basically off season for them.
We're gonna get to that. I love that. I love that small little shot. That's great.
So like they can afford to, go compete a couple times after the games, especially in a situation like Rogue, where Rogue is going to pay out through last place. They're going to cover your travel and accommodations. So your earning potential is astronomical by going to a competition like Rogue. There's really no downside not to do it unless you're seriously injured.
Yeah. So in the same way we talked about like semifinal athletes, semifinal level athletes, and like that 6 to 21, right? Now let's drop down and let's think about this question with quarterfinal athletes in mind. People that are gonna make it to the quarterfinals, especially with the expanded breadth of it. But they're not going to make it any farther. And let's really think about the ones that don't have it in mind to make it any farther than semifinals. They just want to have a cool quarterfinal weekend. You're CrossFit HQ or CrossFit Games. Sorry, let's not mix those two up, right? You're the CrossFit Games. How much consideration when you're making your schedule and you're making choices for the game season, how much consideration do you have to put in for the quarterfinal level athletes? People are all talking about, oh, the open and quarterfinals don't matter anymore. But I'm sure if you go put on Hiller, Savan, barbell spin, anything that Castro or Bosman have been on, they'll keep saying this phrase: the cream will rise to the top. I mean, we saw Frazier do it for however many years. We saw Tia do it. We saw them both do it in the year of COVID. We saw them both do it in the year with 2 opens, all that stuff. So how much consideration do we need to give to the quarterfinal athletes? Are we ruining their season?
I think you need to give a lot of consideration to the quarterfinals athletes, the ones that aren't going to make it past quarterfinals, because the people who make it to semifinals, the people who make it to the games, like you said, the cream will rise to the top. They're going to be okay. 99% of the decisions that CrossFit makes will not affect whether or not they qualify.
As long as those decisions all lead to the fitness is the way that you get to the games, then,
yes, correct. The one kind of maybe cause for concern this coming season is just the fact that there's 1.5 times, 2.5 times as many people eligible for quarterfinals now, and you're cutting qualifying spots to semifinals. So now, you better make sure that the programming and the video review is going to be something that will make sure that the fittest are at the top of the leaderboard.
What's your level of trust that the games will do just that, what you said, that they will have a thorough video review process and that the workouts, the test will be legit to test the right people through to semifinals?
I want to say I have trust in them. It's hard. I don't know. I know.
Give us a percentage if you had to.
I know that they're aware of the issues. And I know that they're aware of how these changes can potentially impact things. And I have 100% confidence that they're going to try to fix the issues that this presents. Whether those fixes.
So you're not like other people that think that they're just sitting back on their hands, like, oh, we see all your guys' videos, but we don't care. You don't think that they're like that?
It's not that. And I have talked to a lot of people in CrossFit sport. I know a lot of people in CrossFit sport, and they care a lot about making a fair season, making a good season. They want to solve the problems that people present. I think a lot of times it just comes down to trial and error. And sometimes there's more error in that than we want. But CrossFit is still such a young sport that we kind of have to be willing to go through these fumbles and figure it out and get through it so that we can get to a point where we won't have these issues coming up anymore. But going back to your original question, I think we really do need to consider, well, when I say we, CrossFit sport really does need to consider the quarterfinals level athletes, because ultimately the parts of the season that make money are the open and quarterfinals.
Right.
Semifinals lose money. I'm sure. Well, maybe the games make money. I don't know. It's freaking expensive to put the games on. I don't know if they're turning a profit on that at all.
Maybe not straight revenue from the games itself, but from some of the byproducts of the things that happen as a result of it,
Yeah. So, but just from a business standpoint, the open is making money for very little expenditure. And quarterfinals are making money for very little expenditure. When I say expenditure, I mean monetarily.
Right.
And so if you are trying to create a system where you can actually make enough money to continue existing, We need the open, we need quarterfinals, we need people to want to sign up for them, we need people to want to participate in them. And so if we're looking at, 25% of athletes are now going to be eligible to register for quarterfinals, they need to find a way to make 25% of athletes want to register for quarterfinals.
Yeah, hell yeah. I think it was Hiller made a great post last week talking about if you pay to go to your affiliate and do the in-house open, then you don't pay any money to CrossFit. If you do the open, you do quarterfinals, that's when you have now become a customer of CrossFit Sport,
Yeah.
which is
There's
an
a
important
difference
thing.
between being a customer of your gym and a customer of CrossFit.
And very few people inside of affiliates understand that distinction, or if you're not a spectator to events that are, put on by CrossFit Sport, then you haven't really been a customer of CrossFit Sport yet, which is lacking. And since they don't have a metric of how many people attend each different affiliate, then the only way that they truly have to track how many people consider themselves a CrossFitter enough to put money behind it is through the open and quarterfinals,
Yeah.
I mean, the level one is one thing, but a lot of those people, probably over 60% of them, walk out of those and don't follow any sort of CrossFit media or guidelines, So there's no way to classify them just from the level one or the level two, I should say. Who will be on top of the men's field next year? Will it be Roman, or will Jeff hold on to it again, or a dark horse?
I think it's gonna be Pat.
You think Pat's going to come back?
I do.
How many years after that do you think Pat has?
I hope he has a few.
A few more? Oh,
Yeah.
A few more too. Damn, that's dope.
I love watching Pat compete. I think he's such a cool dude.
How can you not love Pat?
And he was awesome at Rogue this year.
Yeah, how could you just not love the Northman? Next question: who will be on top of the women's field? Actually, better question. But will Tia lose between January and August when the games happens? Will she lose anything?
Will she lose the open, quarters, semis, or games?
I mean, events in the open, events in the quarters, semis, and games. Do you think she takes the games crown again?
I don't know. I think Laura is going to be hard to beat, especially after
she's tasted blood.
The Fittest on Earth title, and she beat Tia at Rogue. So now she knows it's possible.
Yeah.
There's no more doubt in her mind that she can never beat Tia.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Now, another top dog here. Will Mal O'Brien return to the CrossFit Games?
I don't know. Has she confirmed whether or not she's competing this season?
Not to my knowledge. My hot take is that I don't think that she'll be back to CrossFit. I think she's going to get some hot deal and with a brand to be either model, ambassador, or something like that for it, and just be like, bro, I'm fine. I'll catch y'all later.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if she doesn't compete this year at all. I think that she will continue to do CrossFit as a training methodology. I don't know, just based on what I have seen from her very limited social media posts. She posted a story a couple days ago at a spin class.
Yeah.
Or it looked like it was either a spin class or Orange Theory or something like that, not CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I think if she was gonna come back to competing the way that she wouldn't be doing things that aren't CrossFit. But I think right now
she'd be getting back into the spin.
Yeah. I think right now she's enjoying being a teenager again.
Right.
Young 20s, whatever she is.
Yeah.
And I say again, I don't think she ever had the opportunity to enjoy that before. So I think
the past 7 years.
Yeah, I think she's learning what it means to exist outside of CrossFit. And I think that's really cool for her. And I hope she's happy.
Hell yeah. I that's why I don't think she's coming back. I think she's found happiness in it. I think that once you find that, it's hard to let go. How do you feel about semifinal athletes doing local competitions? Got you. I don't even want to shit on myself, but something that I would host at KOP.
Yeah, something where it's like the 20-30 mile radius of CrossFit gyms are gonna come out.
Yeah. And also teenagers don't count in this, for all the people out there. Adult semifinal athletes.
I think it depends on what level semifinal athlete you are. I think
The level we talked about earlier, anyone that's below, we'll go a little bit lower, anyone 18 and below on the leaderboard.
I don't know if you can quantify it by a number. I think it's more like okay, maybe you can quantify by a number, because I'm kind of about to do that.
Yes, like you can kind of think about it. If you finish in an area.
Thinking about the semifinals last year that had the fields of 60. First 2 heats versus last 2 heats. There's 6 heats total.
True.
So heats 1 and 2 versus heats 5 and 6. There is a very stark difference between the athletes in heats 1 and 2 versus the athletes in heats 5 and 6 on almost every event.
Yeah.
I think if you're a heat 1 and 2, like a consistently heat 1 and 2 athlete,
Like, not that you make it to the later heats by the day 3,
Yeah. I think it can be appropriate to do local competitions depending on the level of the local field. Like if you have some really good competitors in your area where, hey, maybe they were like 10, 20, 30 spots from making semifinals.
All the bubble athletes,
Yeah. Like I think that's totally fine. If you're performing better than that at semifinals, then I think it starts to get a little sketchy. Like I personally wouldn't feel right doing a local competition in my area where I live right now, because I know that there's not really any high level athletes around here.
Like you would go do the RX division and you'd be against the girl that's probably going to get her first chest to bar for the first time at some point in the day. She may not be the number 2 spot next to you, but she's probably going to be,
in the field. Like that, I would feel like an asshole, because I remember when I was like a local level competitor and I would go to these competitions, and every once in a while there would be that one athlete that you're like, oh, they are way too good to be in this competition, and they just show up clean sweep, like it's
right. Don't break a sweat.
Yeah, and like when I was that local level athlete, I'm like, man, fuck that girl. Like she needs to leave.
Right.
Like I don't want people to think that about me. And I don't want to be the asshole that ruins a competition experience for somebody, especially if it's somebody who's like just getting into competing. Maybe it's their first local competition. Like, I don't want to be that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, you want to pass it down, like everything that you got to experience when you were at that level. You want to keep giving the same thing to other people.
And honestly, like most of the reason I compete now is to try and win money. And like those local competitions,
it's a career. Yeah
the local competitions aren't going to be a substantial amount of money, so like it's not even worth it, really.
I've seen some people go out and take the $300 that the competition was given. I thought it was pretty funny when it happens, not gonna lie. But that's because I'm not competing in them. That's usually how I feel about them, in fact. But
like,
I think that was
like when I was a local competitor, winning $300 would have been the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I feel you.
Now, when I'm going to competitions that have like a couple $1,000 prize purses, like I don't want to be the asshole that takes the $300 from the local competitor.
Right. Yeah, no,
I have other opportunities to spend my time on.
True competitor mindset, right there. I love it. So, dude, with the next new journey on the horizon, wow, we've gone through. This is now at least the second journey that we've gone through on the podcast here. With the next new one on the horizon, like, what are you hungry for?
Moving out to Nevada with that journey.
Yeah.
I want to make the games. I feel really good about this season. I want to get out to Nevada and start to really establish myself in the CrossFit space. I want to find other ways to get involved with CrossFit through, coaching, media, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to figure out how to make CrossFit my life. And like
I think you're definitely
sustainably.
breaking it. I think you're definitely breaking into the avenues. I think just like Brian said, like you have an upward trajectory going on in a multitude of different aspects of CrossFit, and like why take a step backwards from that? Like. So I think that's what it's going to be, man. I think this is, like we said, the second iteration of the journey, not even the second, just the journey continuing onto a different path that like you didn't really foresee before. One of my friends actually just asked me yesterday, like, how do I deal with like failure? Feel like you're not like doing enough at the time. And I said, well, first, mostly depression. And then second, I remind myself that faith is being able to see things that are not tangible yet. Like they're literally on the other side, and you're not able to put your eyes on it, and that's the number one thing that leads to success, a faith in yourself, so.
Yeah. Have you seen it's like a meme on Instagram, or I don't even know if you can call it a meme, but just like a graphic that I've seen
everywhere
pop up on Instagram, and it's like a guy tunneling through to a mine.
Oh yeah.
He's gone through this whole big tunnel, and
like
right on the other side is all of the diamonds that he's looking for.
Yeah.
And there's like a centimeter of dirt left, but he turns
one little whack.
And
like you're right there.
Yeah, that's what I think about. Like you never know when it's going to happen. You never know what's going to push you over the edge, get you to that goal. So just don't stop.
Hell yeah. Wow, dude, I think that is the perfect note to end this 9th or 100th podcast on here. Dogs, this has been Ellia Miller again for the 100th, 1000th time. Peace.